Welcome in Slumpbusters. It is your host, Juju and Kyle, here to bring you another fantastic guest interview on the eve of baseball opening day. Joining us, the host of Inside the Parker, the host of The Odd Couple. He writes for Deadspin. He's a Baseball Hall of Fame voter, one of the hardest working sports analysts out there. We are joined today by the one, the only, Rob Parker. Rob, how you doing today? You ready for baseball?
Absolutely. Are you crazy? This is like Christmas for me. I'm excited. The start of opening day. I know it's delayed a week, but we could accept that as long as we get all 162 games in. So I'm cool. I never believed we weren't going to have a season. I figured they'd get it figured out, and they did. And, people are very spoiled. When it was going on, the lockout. But we had 28 years of labor peace. We hadn't had any kind of interruption of baseball since the 1994 canceling of the World Series. So it had been a long time. And for a lot of people in the last generation, 25 years, it felt weird that there was this angst. But I'm an older guy. I've been covering baseball, Major League Baseball since 1986 and been a fan forever. And in the old days, it used to be every 3 or 4 years, there was a work stoppage or a strike, or you know what I mean? Because the union is strong. Unlike you didn't have these things in the NFL or the NBA because the players' unions aren't nearly as strong as baseball. So I'm happy, can't wait for opening day.
Oh, you said it best. 162 games, we still get it. The last time we had that big strike, I was born in the year that the Expos were supposed to be the World Series champions. So
right, back in 1994,
Exactly.
absolutely.
New CBA this means. So new labor agreement. What did you think of the deal that the players struck? Do you think it was a good deal for both sides?
I mean, both sides gave in some. I know players got to be happy with the minimums and some of the other money that's pulled in for guys who don't have to wait, all the way to get paid. I think those are good things. The owners got what they wanted, expanded playoffs. Remember, players don't get paid during the playoffs. That's an owner's paradise and windfall. So that's why you even see it in the NFL, why they added playoff teams. That's what they want, playoff money, which players get a pool of, depending on how far you get in the playoffs, but you don't get paid during the postseason. So I understand it. I'm not that keen on, I don't want the Major League Baseball to turn into the other sports where more than half the league makes the playoffs. I kind of hate that. We're up to 12 teams. I don't want 16, the NHL and NBA. The NBA has 20 teams competing in the postseason out of 30. What are we doing? We're playing 82 games to eliminate 10 teams?
So one of the things that's been interesting about the expanded playoffs is the increase in anti-tanking sentiments that have gone on around Major League Baseball. Obviously, the story since the CBA was passed is the Reds have torn their team to the ground. The A's have torn their team to the ground. Cleveland was in the process of tearing their team down before signing Jose Ramirez to an extension. But I saw before that they had $0 guaranteed after this season prior to signing Jose Ramirez. So you're not the biggest fan of tanking. The MLB instituted a lottery in the new CBA. They've tried to figure out ways to trade comp picks. How do you feel about the state of tanking in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I mean, we saw, I think, the Astros do it, right? And that was really, the Astros were able to benefit from it, and they were able to put together young players and then build a team. You remember a couple of years ago, I think that they weren't even getting people watching Astros games on TV. The ratings were so low. And then they built up a powerhouse. So teams looked at that and were like, that's where we want to go. I don't like it. I think it's not fair to the fan base. Everybody can't win. I get that. And everybody can't be the Dodgers or the Mets, the two highest payrolls. I get that. And I understand the players' concern. The only thing I wonder is if you're asking people to have a floor, then shouldn't there be a ceiling? I'm not for salary caps, but if you're asking that there's a minimum being spent, then what about a maximum? Players want there not to be a maximum, but there to be a floor. So I think that's where there's an issue. I don't think that if teams get money from the other teams for competitive balance, that money should be put anywhere other than back into the franchise. If you get $100 million, that's got to be spent on payroll and players, not profits in your pocket. I think that's the problem I have with the money going to teams where, the Baltimore Orioles payroll is $30 million and they're getting $100 million in competitive balance money. They're making $70 million profit before they sell a ticket or parking spot or their TV money. I think that's wrong.
Rob, you're obviously a Hall of Fame voter, and this year the Hall of Fame kind of like made some big waves in the offseason because for the 10th consecutive year, Clemens, Bonds, not in. I know you've been consistent on voting for those guys the last couple of years. This one struck me a little bit differently too, because David Ortiz was a first ballot Hall of Famer. And to me, that just comes off as hypocritical. And these are the guys of mine and Kyle's generation. We grew up watching these guys play. So they kind of like brought us into our love of baseball. So what was your thought process when that whole thing went down?
Well, I was on MLB Network as an analyst that night. It was a big night, and I thought we got it wrong. The BBWAA, which I've been a member of since 1990, and it's a great organization, and the writers normally get it right, and they do. I mean, they take it very seriously. I thought we swung and missed to not put Bonds and Clemens. And your point about Big Papi, I think he's actually one of the poster child to me. If you're going to look at a guy whose career wasn't that great when he was in Minnesota, and then all of a sudden became this unbelievable hitter. The one thing you can't say about Bonds and Clemens is that they were good from day one, pre-steroid use. And so I have an issue. Clemens won 3 Cy Youngs with the Red Sox. Go look at the videotape. He's this skinny. Bonds won 3 MVPs in Pittsburgh way before he ever went. Now, and then we have these other guys who we've put in the Hall of Fame, and you're keeping out 2 of the greatest players. Pudge Rodriguez was in the Canseco book. I was in Detroit the year after Pudge came back and lost 40 pounds in the offseason. You know, I was there for that. Mike Piazza, there was always rumors and stuff swirling about him and juice use. Bagwell in Houston. I mean, like these guys are all in, and even Big Papi's name was on that list, even though the commissioner tried to pardon him and say it was a mistake, whatever it was. It's either none of the guys get in or we put some of these guys in. And I'm sorry, when you talk about Bonds, Clemens, Sosa, and even Sheffield, I voted for all 4 of those guys. All 4 of those guys, go look at their stats. Sosa was a 30 guy at age 24, way before Juice. Sheffield was a star from day one when he broke in with the Milwaukee Brewers. Go look. I think it's unfair, and I think we're picking on a couple of guys when this was a widespread problem in baseball, especially because they weren't testing for it.
Rob, I wanted to ask you about the Trevor Bauer situation, because over the offseason, criminal charges were not brought against him in Los Angeles County, and Major League Baseball is still investigating for him in regards to the personal conduct policy. And they're in a place now where he's still on administrative leave, and Bauer has been increasingly vocal now that criminal charges aren't being brought against him. And yet Major League Baseball is still waiting to decide on completing their investigation and deciding a suspension. How do you feel about how they've handled this situation over the past 9 months?
I get it. It's a touchy situation, and people have to understand you don't have to have a criminal conviction in order for a league to sanction a suspension against you. I mean, it's happened before. When you sign these contracts, you sign code of conduct clauses and moral clauses. And it's not about the court of law. If you do something to damage the image or the shield, as they say in the NFL, whatever, they can suspend you, and baseball has that right. There have been players with domestic violence where the wives have refused to testify, but they still got suspended by Major League Baseball, despite there not being a trial or, a judgment. Either way, guilty or innocent. The only thing I'll say is I think Major League Baseball is taking way too long. I think with the time that's spent, they should have said to Trevor Bauer, either you can play or you can't by now. Like, for it to be past spring training and opening day seems unfair to me, despite how horrific the charges were, the pictures I saw. I mean, I get it. I don't believe personally he'll ever play for the Dodgers again. And there'll be a number of teams that won't, because I remember the actions of the Dodgers when this came out. and the pictures. All of his teammates stopped following him on social media. The team had a bobblehead night scheduled for him. They canceled that. They stopped selling his jersey. I mean, and this is all before there was any kind of guilt or innocence. And I think there are people inside that clubhouse, an organization that still, regardless of how talented he is, would rather not have a guy who has these things in his past a part of the franchise. So even though the Dodgers could seriously use him at the top of their rotation, I don't think he'll play for the Dodgers. I do believe there'll be some team he'll play for, but I would be shocked if he's back with the Dodgers.
Rob, changing gears there a little bit. I was reading your recent article on Deadspin, or recent baseball article on Deadspin, regarding the death of pitchers batting, so the rise of the DH. And I, too, will miss Bartolo Colon making some swings in the batter's box. But you're the first person since Kevin Costner and Bull Durham to be anti-DH. So want to kind of like explain your philosophies. You called it a bad idea dating back to the 70s.
Yeah, baseball wasn't invented that way. I love the strategy of, do I keep the pitcher in? You know, it's the sixth inning. We're down by a run. We got a man on second base. This might be our only chance. Should I pinch it for him? Do you know what I mean? Like the strategy of it. Now you could just make out. The American League to me always reminded me of a softball beer league. You just make out the lineup and just throw people out there, and there's no, just let everybody get their whacks. So I'm not a big DH guy. I love National League Baseball better. I always have. I'm going to miss it. I don't think managing will be nearly as prevalent as it was, strategy and all that. So I'm not a DH guy. It just doesn't do anything for me. And now we'll see. You know, at one time it was supposed to be put in to keep older players in the game who can't play the field nearly as well. You're going to see a lot younger guys DHing. Freddie Freeman, right? I don't know if he's going to DH with the Dodgers, but there's a spot now for guys to DH and whatnot. I'm a traditionalist. I'm not the old guy, you know, waving at the clouds or whatever, but I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. I didn't like it in 1973, and I don't like it in 2022.
Still holding out hope that the Giants sign Barry Bonds to a one-year DH contract with that now in the National League.
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? That would be great.
Yeah, restart the clock. Restart it. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, of course, if you want to follow Rob for all his excellent baseball content, football content, basketball content, jack of all trades, at Rob Parker FSR, at Rob Parker FS1 on Instagram and Twitter, respectively, for news, rumors, locations of quiet places where rats may or may not be urinating. Rob Parker's got you covered.
And please, if you haven't, subscribe to the podcast, Inside the Parker. You could just Google it, find it, and subscribe. It's a fun podcast. You guys have heard it. 22 minutes tops, moves real fast. And this week, dropping tomorrow, Hall of Fame legendary sportscaster Bob Costas, who you know loves baseball as much as we do, and Cameron Maben, the former outfielder, who's now a television broadcaster on the Yes Network for the Yankees. He took over Ken Singleton's old job, who retired. Great podcast to kick off the baseball season. So please try to download it and subscribe.
Yes, sir. You got us listening. All right. Again, Rob Parker, go give him a look. Give Inside the Parker a look. Juju here, Kyle here. Stay safe, happy, healthy. We'll see you on the next one.